Okay, this is a demo of the package ZK, which facilitates working with notes that have links between them. Notes that are structured in line with what's known as the Zettelkasten method of note-taking, where all notes are stored as plain text and kept in a single directory. Each note has a stable and unique ID number. By default, that's a timestamp when the note was created, and that is the first string of the file name. And that allows the notes to remain stable, even if, when the contents and the title changes, this remains constant, kind of a locator for that note. And the notes are linked by IDs in this, in double brackets, although if you want to use single brackets or angle brackets or some other identifying, bracketing system, you can do that. Notes can also be connected by using tags. If you've used any kind of other program to create a database or an archive of linked notes, this should be at least somewhat familiar. Some of the programs that offer this kind of functionality outside of Emacs, Roam, Obsidian, Logsec, Zettler, and the one I'm most familiar with is the archive, which is associated with Zettelkasten.de, which has a lot of explanations and guidance on setting up this kind of Zettelkasten, this kind of digital note-taking structure. Within Emacs, there's org-roam, but also more closely in line with what this package is trying to do is Zetteldeft, which is also more closely in line with the archive. And so this is a package, ZK is a package that should have compatibility with note archives that have been made already with the archive and with Zetteldeft. What makes this different is that ZK doesn't have any dependencies outside of what's already built into Emacs. So the distinction between this and Zetteldeft is that it doesn't have a dependency on deft. And so you can use it with any plain text file type in any major mode, and it can be extended in all the ways that Emacs can be extended without worrying about the maintenance and support of an external package. As long as Emacs is being supported, then this ZK should work for you. And it can also be extended, and I think should be extended with other packages like Embark, especially. Consult is very useful. Link hint, very useful. And also any completion framework. I would suggest Vertigo and Orderless, and I'll demonstrate why. But these are just kind of the basic extensions that make working with an archive of notes a bit more pleasant, a bit more fluid. So we're in Emacs Q, and the only thing I've installed is KeyCast so that you can see my keystrokes, and then the modus vivendi theme, not to hurt anyone's eyes, and then a few kind of sensible defaults here. And so to load the package, just put the zk.el into your load path, and then you can just require ZK. And this is what zk.el looks like. There's kind of an explanation here at the top, and then all the customizable variables here. The only variables that are necessary before getting started to set our ZK directory and ZK file extension. So let's do that here. And then you can look in the namespace commands and see what's available to you. It's hard to do anything without a note, so let's create a new note and call it first note. And it's asking, do we want to insert a link at point? No, I do not, because I'm outside of my directory, and that wouldn't be very useful. So here's the first note, and you can see that it inserts a very generic, header that doesn't follow any format, and that can be changed to your liking very easily. But let's just say this is my first note, and it's a really good one. And let's add a tag here, first note, and interesting topic. Great. Okay. Sometimes you have a lot of good ideas, and you need a new note. So let's say I have a paragraph of nice text that I don't want to be in the first note. I could create a new note and call it second note, and then copy and paste this into that, but that's a lot of work. So let's do something a bit more fun. If you select a region and call ZK new note, then automatically the first line of the region becomes the title of the new note, and the rest of the region becomes the body of the new note. So here's what that looks like. Insert a link at point. It's asking me, do I want to insert a link at point? Yes, I think I do. Okay. So the difference between the first note and the second note here is that now there is a backlink to the first note in the header. There is not one in the first note because we didn't create it from within the archive. So there was no note to link to. And you'll also notice that there is a link at point where we created the note, a link to the second note here. So you're well on your way to creating an archive of linked notes. The buttons here, the links between notes, are made with the built-in buttons library. They have these useful little tooltips there with the title of the note, and you can disable the use of the buttons library if you want to use org links instead. There's a bit in the README of how to configure org links like this to be clickable, but it's very simple. But you won't get the useful tooltip there if you do that. So let's say we want to rename a note. There's a lot of ways to do that, but ZK rename note is one of them, and you'll see that it's populated with the name of the note, and you can just say new note, second note renamed, and then it automatically changes it in the first line there. So as long as the title is in the first line, that function will find the title and automatically change it and save the note. The useful thing about using UIDs, unique IDs, is that even if the title changes, the note links remain stable, and even the tooltip has the correct title there. Another way to change the note title is to edit the first line and then call ZK rename note, and it will ask you if you want to change from the old title to the new title, and you can say yes, and then everything is how you want it to be. So let's make a third note, ZK new note, and let's call it third note. Insert link at point. Now it keeps asking me if I want to insert a link at point, and that seems a little bit annoying because I'm in my ZK, and so I think I want it to just do that by default. So what you can do is set this zk new note insert link. Currently it's set to ask, but if you set it to t, then it will always insert a link. But if you set it to zk, it'll only insert a link inside an existing note. So let's do that. And then we don't have to answer the dialog every time. So we can just, since we're in fundamental mode, we can just evaluate this function here. There. So now we have third note. This is a great note, I have to say. Okay. Let's create a link. zk insert link. It's linked to the first note. Now, what we're going to get here is a demonstration of the completion framework and why you might want to use something like Vertigo and orderless. So right now, again, we're in Emacs queue and just using standard completion, which is fine, but it's not that comfortable, or it's not as comfortable as it might be. So we have all of our completions here, and we can link to the first note. But if you're doing something like zk find file, and you want to go through, you don't have the luxury of being able to see all your notes. Let's say you have 100 notes instead of just 3, and you want to search for the word by title. You can't really do that in standard completion in a way that's super comfortable. You have to kind of go into iSearch, and there's a reason why things like Vertigo exist. So let's install Vertigo and a useful companion called orderless, which is a completion style. So if you do install Vertigo, then you get this and a much nicer interface. But if you don't have orderless and you try to type first note, it doesn't work, because this is completing against the entire user name, the entire file name, even though it's being shortened here to just the file name. It's behind the completion framework is the whole file path. So to make this a bit better, a bit more comfortable, let's set our completion style to orderless, and then now you can find, there we go, first note, and you can do it in any order, hence orderless. Okay, so now we have a link from the third note to the first note, and a link from the second note to the first note. Let's say we don't have any links in the first note, and it's just kind of a naked note, and we're not really sure how this note is connected to the rest of the Zettelkasten. If you do zk backlinks, then you'll see all the notes that link to this one. So that's pretty handy. That's a pretty handy way of figuring out which notes know about this note. Let's create from here a new note and call it fourth note. Okay. And insert some tags. Actually, let's insert some tags this way. Let's do zk tag insert. Remember, on the first note, we added some tags, and here they are. So we don't want first note because that's not what it is. And these just insert at point. So you can insert them anywhere you want. And if we go back to, let's go back to the third note and say, I wonder which notes have some tags in them. You can use zk tag search to pull up a grep buffer with all the places where your search string, that tag, appears. And this works also with ZK search to search for any tag or any search string. So let's look for the word great, and there it is. It's in the note that we're already in, and this standard grep buffer is, again, it's built in to Emacs, and it's a pretty useful way of getting a sense of where things are in an archive of notes. If you know that you have, you are just trying to find a note and you don't want the grep buffer, you can do zk find file by full search, and then that'll find and make available all the notes that contain the search string that you're looking for. So that's just another way of finding and identifying notes that might be interesting at any given time. Okay, so we've shown almost all the basic functionality. The last thing I'll show is completion at point. So there is, if you evaluate this, you add zk completion at point to the completion at point functions just by evaluating this add hook, and you do double brackets or whatever you're linking. If you have a custom linking scheme and you do completion at point, then it'll show you possible completions for all the notes that are possible, and then it'll just insert it there. And you might note that that's not a button. It's because it hasn't been made into a button yet. So you have to do something like zk make link buttons, and then it'll make everything in the buffer that is a valid link to a note into a button. I'm sure there's a way to add a hook to do that automatically at the end of completion, but I haven't really been bothered to figure that out. If you do use completion at point, I would recommend using something like Company or Corfu to make that a bit more friendly. So let's install Corfu, and let's actually install it. Set it up, and then these are some default settings that are kind of nice. And then if you do double brackets, give it a second, it should work. Voila. So then you have all the notes in your archive ready to be linked at a given time. And again, you'll have to zk make links. I'm sure there's a way of doing that automatically. There is a function included, zk make link before point. It's not a command, but you could hook that into some kind of hook. If Company has a hook, or if Corfu has a hook, it's sort of a post-completion hook. That might be an option. Okay, I said that was the last thing, but I lied, because I want to show Embark integration. So if you have Embark installed, you can just evaluate the function zk setup Embark, and that will add the necessary Embark targets as an ID target to Embark. Let's install this and set an Embark Act key, and that should be enough actually, and call it here. And then that is telling me it's acting on a file. Let's do, I think I did Embark before I had it set up, so let's do Embark setup, zk setup Embark again, and okay, that should work. So you have to load Embark and then call that function. So just add this function to your config if you want that to be set up automatically. And then here's what you get. Embark act on a file, or on an ID rather, and then you get these Embark actions. You can follow the link at point, you can search for that ID, and find all the places where it exists in the archive. Or you can just copy the link, and then it copies it in the completion at point format. And again, you'll have to make buttons. This Embark also works in the mini buffer. If you do Embark act on this note, then it gives you or it should give you what you're looking for, but doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. Wonder why not. So let's just maybe cheat a little bit here. ZK find. There. ZK find file gives you ZK copy link and title, find, or even insert link if you want. So we can do Embark act, insert link, and then it inserts a link. And I think that's it for now. So if you want to give it a try and let me know what you think, what's working, what's not working, I would love to hear it. So thanks, and see you next time.